Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me in this extremely detailed breakdown of one of the most serious and frightening developments in the ongoing war between Iran and Israel that is currently shaking the entire Middle East and affecting the lives and wallets of people all over the world. Right now, on March 28, 2026, Iran has carried out yet another major missile attack against Israel. And this latest barrage was particularly dangerous because it included cluster warheads that caused real damage and loss of life in the heart of Israel, especially in the greater Tel Aviv metropolitan area. The attack began late on the night of March 27th and continued into the early hours of March 28th when Israeli air raid sirens suddenly started blaring across multiple cities and towns, forcing millions of people to wake up in panic and rush to their safe rooms or underground shelters. Witnesses described hearing loud explosions in the distance, followed by the terrifying sound of smaller bomblets raining down from the sky as some of the incoming Iranian missiles opened up high above the ground and released dozens of smaller explosive devices that scattered over a wide area. Rescue teams from Magen David Adom and other emergency services worked through the night, treating the injured, clearing debris from streets, and checking damaged buildings, while videos shared by residents showed shattered windows, collapsed roofs, cars covered in shrapnel, and smoke rising from several impact sites in places like Ramat Gan Bnei Brak and other suburbs of Tel Aviv. Israeli authorities later confirmed that at least one civilian in his 60s was killed by flying shrapnel from these cluster munitions, and several other people were injured, some with serious wounds that required hospital treatment. This was not a minor incident. It was part of a continuing pattern of Iranian retaliation that has now lasted for nearly a full month since the war began on February 29th. To fully understand what happened in this latest attack, we need to look carefully at the type of weapons Iran is using and why they are so difficult to defend against. Iran fired multiple waves of long-range ballistic missiles, some of which were equipped with special cluster warheads. These cluster warheads are designed to open up while the missile is still descending through the atmosphere and release between 24 and 80 smaller bomblets that then fall over a large area, sometimes covering as much as 10 kilometers wide. Each bomblet contains its own explosive charge, and when they hit the ground, they create multiple small but powerful explosions that can damage buildings, vehicles, and people across a wide zone. This tactic is very effective at overwhelming even the most advanced air defense systems like Israel's Iron Dome Arrow and David's Sling, because instead of trying to intercept one large missile, the defense systems suddenly have to deal with dozens of smaller targets at the same time. Israeli officials have admitted that in recent attacks, they have sometimes chosen not to intercept every single bomblet in order to save their limited and very expensive interceptor missiles for bigger threats. But this decision, unfortunately, increases the risk to civilians living in cities and towns. In the March 27th to 28th attack, a number of these cluster bomblets managed to reach the ground, causing real destruction and the death of at least one innocent person, along with injuries to several others. The scenes from the affected neighborhoods were heartbreaking, with families standing outside their damaged homes, children crying, and rescue workers searching through the rubble for anyone who might still be trapped. This latest barrage did not happen in isolation. It is part of a much larger and very intense war that started when the United States and Israel decided to launch large-scale preemptive strikes on Iranian territory on February 28, 2026. Those initial strikes targeted Iranian nuclear facilities, missile production sites, energy infrastructure, and several high-ranking commanders in an attempt to severely weaken Iran's military capabilities. Iran responded almost immediately with promises of massive retaliation, and since then it has launched hundreds of missiles and drones in repeated waves, targeting Israeli cities, American bases in the region, and energy facilities in the Gulf. The use of cluster warheads is one of Iran's strategies to try to break through Israel's sophisticated multi-layered defense system. By spreading destruction over a wider area, these weapons create more psychological fear and force Israel to make difficult choices about how to allocate its defensive resources. Iranian state media has described these attacks as legitimate retaliation for the deaths of Iranian leaders and the damage done to their country, while Israeli leaders have called them cowardly attempts to target civilians. The truth is that both sides are now locked in a dangerous cycle of strike and counterstrike that is causing suffering on both sides and creating enormous economic costs that are being felt far beyond the Middle East. The human cost of this war is becoming heavier with every passing day. In Israel, millions of people are living under constant stress, with children unable to sleep properly, families spending many nights in crowded shelters, and normal daily life almost completely disrupted in many parts of the country. Schools have been closed or moved to online learning in affected areas. Workplaces have reduced hours, and the constant sound of sirens has created a deep sense of anxiety across the population. On the Iranian side, repeated Israeli and American airstrikes have killed senior military commanders, destroyed important infrastructure, and caused serious hardship for ordinary citizens who are also dealing with power shortages, economic difficulties, and fear of further attacks. Hospitals in both countries have been treating increasing numbers of wounded soldiers and civilians, and the psychological toll on families who have lost loved ones is immeasurable. International humanitarian organizations have expressed growing concern about the rising civilian casualties and the long-term effects this war will have on an entire generation of young people in the region. At the same time, this war is having a massive impact on the global economy, and the main reason is the disruption it is causing to oil supplies. The Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway through which almost 20% of the world's oil normally flows, has become extremely dangerous and in many cases unusable for commercial shipping. Tankers are staying away because of the constant threat of Iranian missile and drone attacks, mines, or fast boat harassment. Insurance companies have raised war risk premiums to levels that make passage uneconomical for most ship owners. As a result, many vessels are either anchored outside the strait waiting for safer conditions or taking the extremely long and costly route all the way around the southern tip of Africa, which adds 2 to 3 extra weeks to every journey, burns far more fuel, and increases transportation costs dramatically. This sudden and severe reduction in available oil supply has pushed international oil prices well above $100 per barrel, and on many days they have reached $120 or even higher. The ripple effects are being felt everywhere. Higher gasoline and diesel prices at the pump, increased costs for food transportation and manufacturing, higher electricity bills, and growing inflationary pressure that is making life more difficult for ordinary families in almost every country. Even nations that are far away from the Middle East are now paying the price for this conflict through their wallets. The bigger strategic picture is also very concerning. Both sides have demonstrated significant military capabilities, but neither has been able to achieve a decisive victory. Israel, supported by the United States, has shown superior air power precision strike technology and the ability to hit high-value targets deep inside Iran, including nuclear facilities, missile factories, and senior commanders. At the same time, Iran has proven it possesses a large arsenal of missiles and drones, the willingness to absorb heavy losses, and the ability to continue launching attacks week after week, despite the damage done to its infrastructure. Iran's strategy of using cheaper drones in large swarms combined with ballistic missiles equipped with cluster warheads has been effective at creating widespread fear and forcing Israel to expend large amounts of its expensive defensive missiles. So when we look at the question of who is more powerful and who is actually winning this war, the honest answer is complicated. In terms of advanced technology, precision strikes, intelligence capabilities, and air superiority, Israel and the United States clearly hold the advantage. However, Iran has shown remarkable resilience, the ability to keep fighting despite heavy losses, and the capacity to impose real costs on its opponents, both in terms of military spending and psychological pressure on the civilian population. Right now, the war has turned into a very painful and expensive stalemate, where both sides are suffering significant losses. Neither side has achieved its main objectives. And the longer the fighting continues, the more damage is done to the economies and societies of both countries, as well as to the rest of the world that is paying higher energy prices because of it. There is no clear winner at this moment, only growing human suffering and economic pain that could continue for many more weeks or even months unless serious diplomatic efforts manage to bring the conflict under control. Friends, this has been a very long and detailed look at Iran's latest deadly cluster missile attack on Israel, exactly what happened on the ground, why these weapons are so dangerous, how the war started, the human cost on both sides, the reasons oil prices have gone completely crazy, and a realistic assessment of the current balance of power between the two sides. The situation remains extremely tense and new developments can happen at any moment. So I will continue to follow the news very closely and bring you fresh updates as soon as important information becomes available. If this video helped you understand the real situation behind the headlines, please show your support by hitting the like button, sharing it with friends and family who want to know what is really happening, and subscribing to the channel with notifications turned on so you never miss the next detailed breakdown. Thank you so much for spending this much time with me. Stay safe, stay informed, and I will see you again very soon in the next video.